Bangladesh, there's new information this morning about one of the worst industrial accidents ever. A government committee found several violations that have caused last month's massive factory collapse. More than 1,000 workers were killed.
And in this report, it says that the owner used poor quality cement and iron rods, and 2 floors were illegally added.
Working conditions in some of those overseas factories are notoriously bad. And in this case, as Sean reported, warnings the building was unsafe were not heeded. All kinds of clothes, especially cheap ones, are made in factories like that. So how do we balance consumer demand for cheap clothes with the need to protect those foreign workers?
A contractor making clothes for sportswear giant Nike has been caught using forced labour in Malaysia. An undercover investigation by 7 News discovered factory workers being paid a pittance and forced to live in squalor while Nike stars earn a fortune.
Is one of the most squalid, heartbreaking sights imaginable. There's hundreds of men all living on top of each other. There's a searing heat, an overpowering stench. It makes you feel really angry what's going on here, and also just overwhelmingly sad.
The horror of that factory collapse is still very, very raw in Bangladesh. We spoke to one of the survivors, a 15-year-old garment worker named Tamina. She told us that on the morning of the collapse, she didn't want to go into the factory because she'd already seen cracks in the walls. But she said her supervisor slapped her face and forced her to go inside. This is just the latest in a string of accidents in Bangladesh's garment factories. Last November, more than 100 people died in a fire inside a factory that made clothes for export to the US. During our visit to Bangladesh, we posed as customers and filmed secretly inside factories. And what we saw was hair-raising. In one factory, nearly all of the fire extinguishers were missing and an emergency exit door was blocked almost to the ceiling with boxes. In another place, we saw young workers spraying toxic chemicals that can cause nerve damage, and they weren't even wearing face masks.
Canadian garment workers receive on the low end $9.75 an hour. China, the erstwhile king of cheap labor, pays 93 cents an hour. But there are a dozen countries with lower wages, none worse than Bangladesh, at a remarkable 21 cents an hour.
These jeans.
That is crazy.
Yeah, good quality.
That is totally
ridiculous.